How does average draft position change on different websites? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Friday, March 25th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White, and let's start with ESPN. Hitters that they are much higher on, and it's worth noting that the point scoring on ESPN, you lose a full point for a strikeout, and stolen bases are only worth 1 point. So it's a little bit different than the CBS scoring format. Scott, two names that really stood out to me: Wander Franco going 16th overall in ESPN leagues, DJ LeMahieu going 63rd overall. Those guys make a lot of contact, but it seems pretty high. What do you think?
Look, I think it makes perfect sense for Wander Franco. He's one of the best contact hitters in the game already as a 20-year-old. He struck out 3 times in September, which, you know, the at-bats were, I think he missed some time with an injury or something, so the at-bats were a little lower, but still, I mean, that his contact skills are amazing, enough that in our scoring format, which only penalizes a half a point per strikeouts, last year Wander Franco averaged as many points per game as Corey Seager. He wasn't that far behind like Bo Bichette either. 3.52 for Bo Bichette versus 3.32 for Wander Franco, and that's on our site, where it's only half the penalty as on ESPN, and it's presuming no growth from Wander Franco in his sophomore season. I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's hard to find that high quality of a bat who strikes out that infrequently.
All right, let's take a look at some hitters that are much lower in ESPN. And look, this makes sense. There's a constant theme. You know, hitters who either strike out a lot or steal a lot of bases or both, they are much lower. So Whit Merrifield is 71st overall, Javier Baez 140th, Adalberto Mondesi is 231st, and Jazz Chisholm is 217th. So, I mean, Scott, you know, excluding Whit Merrifield here, because he's still a fine player, these other three, they might not even be usable in a format like this.
Yeah, I don't think Jazz Chisholm's going to be, even if he delivers his like 80th percentile outcome. It's going to be with a lot of strikeouts. It's going to be with stolen bases bolstering his stat line. And this format, the scoring format, ESPN head-to-head points just nerfs both of those things. And like what it really does is it creates such a dichotomy between the high end and low end players that it's kind of optimized it for shallower formats, for like 10 teams or 10 team leagues or smaller. I think maybe is what they were going for here, because you see, you know, that's especially true at starting pitcher at pitcher, where it minus 2 points for every earned run plus a full point for every strikeout. You know, that's going to elevate the very best pitchers from sort of the mid-tier guys in a way you don't see in our scoring format. And, you know, it's going to mean you downgrade guys like Adam Wainwright, who don't miss a lot of bats, but you're going to elevate guys who miss a ton of bats, but maybe don't pitch deep into games, like a Dylan Cease or a Trevor Rogers.
Let's take a look at Yahoo Leagues, and these are mostly head-to-head categories and roto leagues. And surprisingly, Scott, I mean, two players that they're much higher on in Yahoo is Yuli Gurriel, 162nd overall, and Michael Brantley, who's 154th. So two Houston Astros here, two older players, you know, probably more so known for their floor than their ceiling. But what do you think about those guys being ranked much higher than ADP?
I get it. I think when I initially put together my rankings, which I do in October before like anyone else does, and I don't have anything to compare it to, I don't have any projections to look at or anything like that. I think that's about where I ranked Yuli Gurriel and Michael Brantley. And I've since moved them down closer to consensus, in part because there's no reason to reach for them. You don't reach for guys with limited upside, you know, and I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. If you were to project Yuli Gurriel and Michael Brantley, very safe projection, very good idea what they're going to do, a lot of batting average, but not a lot of power. And when you're talking about drafting for fantasy, particularly in a shallower league, say 12 teams or fewer, you don't really want safety with the late picks. You want upside, and that's what they're missing.
All right, some players that are ranked lower on Yahoo: Willie Adames, Marcelo Ozuna, Seiya Suzuki, Sandy Alcantara, Logan Webb, and Ranger Suarez. I wouldn't mind taking advantage of all of those discounts if you can. Players that are ranked higher on CBS, these are players that we talk about all the time because, frankly, it's our rankings that they're using and our ADP. So, Scott, just give me the player that you ranked highest compared to the rest of the industry this season.
I mean, it's probably Luke Voigt, which I know we talk about him a lot, but it's weird how, even if you look at recent ADP, which you can do on NFBC, his move to San Diego, where he's going to get consistent at bats that it seemed like people weren't convinced he was going to get with the Yankees. Certainly he wasn't after they signed Anthony Rizzo. And his numbers are just, he has top 5 potential among first basemen. So for him to still be going around 187th, even on our site, I have him 50 spots higher than that.
All right, yeah, I'm trying to pull up the ADP for Luke Voigt over the past 5 days or so over at the NFBC just to see where he's going. And 218.8. That is just still way too low.
Even worse than our site, yeah.
For Luke Voigt. So take advantage of that if you are drafting this upcoming weekend. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.